It is always a highlight of our AGM to hear what you have achieved on behalf of our members and our communities, and I know tonight will be no exception. I'm very proud of the work you do and the impactful relationships this fosters. Your hard work and deep commitment does not go unnoticed. I also want to take the time to thank the board for their work over the last year. Being a director of a volunteer board takes a high level of commitment. I want to thank you for always showing up with focus and positivity. I especially want to recognize James, Darius, and Susan, who are concluding their time on the board this evening. Each of you has served important leadership roles within our board, and we are grateful for your contributions over the years. You leave huge shoes to fill. I wish you all the best and know that you will continue to advance our shared goals in important and impactful ways. Now I'm going to cede the floor to our Executive Director, Hannah, for her report.
Thank you so much, Jordan, for those opening remarks and that welcome. And yeah, I'd really like to echo the gratitude that you expressed to everyone who's here tonight, to all of our supporters and to our board and staff. Likewise, I'm really proud of the work that we have been able to achieve together this year. And I'm excited to share a little bit about that myself, and then pass the mic over to my colleagues who will talk about some of our campaign work over the last year, as well as provide an educational update from our education team as well. So this picture here on this slide is a picture of a visit that myself and our Director of Campaigns, Shelley Luce, took this summer to visit some of the absolutely spectacular old growth forest that remains on Vancouver Island. And it was so special to get to go and do that trip because the old growth forest protection work remains at the heart of the work that we do at Sierra Club BC. And I know that so many of you here tonight have been deeply involved in work to protect those forests with us and in other capacities as well. And it was really a reminder getting to be in some of those special places this summer of why we do the work that we do. And for our over 50-year history, you know, being involved in safeguarding these incredibly precious and wonderful ecosystems has been at the heart of our work. So I wanted to acknowledge that as we move into this evening, because I know that protecting these ecosystems and other rare and ancient ecosystems is at the heart of why so many of you are part of our organization and belong in the membership. Okay, we'll move on to the next slide now. I'm going to focus tonight, my colleagues are going to focus on some of our substantive campaign and education work. As I mentioned, I want to give you just a sense of some of the kind of investments that the organization has made operationally and strategically this year. So one of the really important pieces of work that we engaged in this year was to make an investment in increasing our capacity to engage respectfully and effectively with Indigenous decision makers, Indigenous governance processes, and Indigenous legal orders. We were really fortunate to form a partnership with the Indigenous Law Research Unit, which is led by Dr. Val Napoleon, who's a Cree legal scholar at the University of Victoria. And this work is also partnered with by the Make Way Foundation, and they've been providing the financial support as well as strategic direction on supporting us as an organization and the environmental sector as a whole to increase this capacity. So like so many other environmental organizations, ours has a lot of expertise built up over many decades of engaging with municipal, provincial, federal governments, but we have not had equivalent investment in knowing how to engage with Indigenous legal processes and Indigenous governance processes. So that's been a gap for us, and it's become one that's been increasingly urgent for us to address. As I'm sure most of you are aware, there's really complex negotiations going on right now between the provincial and federal governments with Indigenous nations over their territories regarding protection of old growth and other resources on these territories. And so we kicked off this one-year partnership with a retreat on Quadra Island at the Sakwa Luton Lodge, and this is a photo from that. It was really wonderful. A lot of our foundation partners were present, staff, Indigenous partners that we work with. So we're really committed to that work, and it will be ongoing with the unit over the coming year. Next slide, please. In addition to that work, we've been making some really significant operational improvements across the entire organization. One component of that is that we have been working with a communications company called Wiseblood on sort of doing a refresh of our communication strategy and our brand, and that will be rolled out next month. So stay tuned for that. It's November 28th on Giving Tuesday that the full launch will happen, but we'd had feedback from a lot of our members around the communications. And so we've undertaken that work, and it's almost complete. We also made some really big changes to our finances as well. We had a paper system for a long time, but we've been moving more of those processes to online processes. That's still in progress, but it will really increase the efficiency of the organization. We've also been implementing just a lot of practices around having consistent work plans, job descriptions, performance reviews, and those things can sound boring, but they really make a difference in terms of the smooth operating of the organization. So we're really, it's been something that we committed to in our current strategic plan. And so we're really happy that we've been able to make some significant progress on that for this year. So we were able to make a lot of these changes, including updating our policies and procedures across the organization because we had some surplus in our budget last year. And so we made this investment, and we're really looking forward in the years to come to seeing those improvements in terms of efficiency and impact across the organization. So that's been a lot of work, and most of those pieces are nearing completion now. Next slide, please. And then I also wanted to just highlight some of our partnerships and our fundraising that we've been engaged in over the past year. We work in partnership with all kinds of different groups that really enrich and support our work. This particular picture just comes from a couple of weeks ago. One of our partners and donors that we work with has sponsored a group of supporters to go to a remote location on Vancouver Island with Suzanne Simard. And it's a learning and a fundraising kind of goal around that retreat. And so the group that went was really lucky to be able to hear from Dr. Suzanne Simard, who, for anyone who's not familiar, she's the author of the phenomenal book, Finding the Mother Tree. And she's a forest ecologist. And so people were able to go out into the old growth on Vancouver Island with her and deepen their understanding and kind of get inspired around the work. We work with a range of different organizations as well through our charitable partnerships, and just some examples of those are Indigenous Climate Action, Ancient Forest Alliance, Canopy, the Padma Center for Climate Justice, and numerous others. And so those partnerships all contribute to both our impact as well as our analysis and understanding of the issues that we work on, which, as all of you know, are complex. And we really, more than ever right now, all need to work together on addressing these issues, given the scale of what we're facing, as well as the complexity of the issues. So we're incredibly grateful to our partners. We're also grateful for everyone who provides financial support to us. And we have such a range. And I know for myself as executive director, like, it's just the generosity of people at all levels of income and how they share with us is just so uplifting and is what makes our work possible. When I first became executive director, I couldn't believe it. Like, every day you come in and there's a check from someone, you know, and it could be a big or small one, but often there'll be a personal note with that check, you know, expressing what the work means to that person. We have school kids that raise money, and then, you know, across the range to our really major donors, you know, who fund at really really significant levels that pay for entire programs and positions. So we're just so grateful to everybody who supports our work as a donor, as a volunteer, as a member, and all the kind of myriad ways that people show up and are part of the community and work with us hand in hand to achieve the work that we do. So I'm gonna finish there and pass it off to my colleague, Dr. Shelley Luce, and she's gonna provide the campaign's update for us today.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Hannah. I am really excited to share some highlights from the campaigns from Sierra Club for the last year or so. There's a lot that we could talk about, and I would love to talk with each of you, any of you further as follow-up to what I'm gonna present today, because I know I'm gonna cover a lot of ground kind of quickly. So please note that there's opportunity to talk about this at other times as well. So we'll go to the next slide. And we'll start by talking about COP15. In December last year, we participated in COP15 in Montreal, which was the Conference of Parties on Biodiversity. And we took advantage of this opportunity. You remember the location of the conference was switched to Montreal. It wasn't originally planned to be here in Canada, but we took advantage of this opportunity to go and meet with folks and also to support some of our Indigenous partners who traveled to Montreal with us and joined other leaders from around the world to advocate for stronger Indigenous voices in global biodiversity protection. And that's so important here in BC that it was really valuable to have those folks there. And while we were there, we also heard the call from the mayor of the host city to commit to protecting biodiversity at home, wherever home is. Montreal challenged us all at COP15 to take 15 tangible actions to preserve ecosystems. We can go to the next slide. So we at Sierra Club, with the help of David, who's pictured here, envisioned a program that would invite people from across the province to learn how to approach their local governments to take action for biodiversity. We call the program Move the Dial, and that is apt because it has led to tangible wins. We enlisted former city councilors to help draft pro-biodiversity resolutions, and we conducted workshops about how to get them adopted by local governments. And folks have been reaching out to us. There's a lot of energy right now among so many people. We all feel it. It's why you're here tonight, to take action on climate and biodiversity. So this was a way that we could facilitate a lot of people putting that energy into something that would be a really tangible action. And thanks to the hard work of those dial movers, 5 municipalities in BC passed a resolution calling on the provincial government to create a local natural areas protection fund. And that would provide provincial funding to First Nations, municipalities, regional districts to protect and restore local biodiversity. And that resolution passed at those 5 cities, made it to the Union of BC Municipalities, and was endorsed there last month in September. So we're really excited about where that can go. And our job now is to follow up on that and see that it's heard at the provincial level to make that fund a reality. And in 2024, Move the Dial will keep working to do exactly that, to call on councillors and mayors to facilitate the creation of that fund. And also to support, hopefully, the biodiversity and ecosystem health legislation that we're looking to for next year, which I'm going to touch on in just a moment. The fun thing about planning a presentation for campaigns is that everything is connected, which is good, but makes it hard to talk about it in a linear way. So bear with me. So can we have the next slide, please? I want to talk about, I'm going to give some updates on old growth, but I'm going to focus on the old growth strategic review, because all of us at Sierra Club and all of you in the audience and throughout our movement were excited when the old growth strategic review panel released their 14 recommendations designed to shift the paradigm from old growth destruction to sustainable forest practices. And that was 3 years ago that those were released, or maybe a little more than that. So 3 years later, we can't help but feel disappointed that none of those recommendations have been completed as promised in a 3-year timeline. And side note, this is why so many people, including the great Neil Young and Daryl Hannah, showed up at the United for Old Growth rally in February this year, and why we all again showed up on the doorsteps of MLAs across the province last month to demonstrate our concerns, to say we love these 14 recommendations and we want to see them implemented. So we're waiting to see the new action plan that the province is going to come up with, outlining when and how the recommendations will be implemented. And there is good news, because progress has been made on some of the OGSR, Old Growth Strategic Review, recommendations. And there are 3 where we see important progress. I'm going to talk about 2 of them now and 1 of them in a moment. So the first one is old growth logging deferrals. There are still more to be obtained, but so far there are millions of hectares deferred of old growth forest deferred. So they're not going to be logged as planned. It's a short-term deferral, but it's really important because it provides provincial funding to First Nations to backfill the lost logging revenues. When we defer logging, that means somebody is not going to earn revenues from that logging. And for some communities, that is catastrophic. So provincial funding can help fill that gap and mitigate the economic impact to those communities and give those communities a little breathing room to figure out if there are alternatives to that kind of clear cutting of old growth. The second recommendation from the OGSR where we've seen progress is in the government crafting a conservation financing mechanism for longer term funding to create real protected areas that will last. So deferrals are short term, couple of years. Longer term funding is urgent. And if it is directly tied to addressing the economic impacts of halting that old growth logging, it can take a lot of pressure off of communities, First Nations, who may depend on logging revenue, and can allow space to develop alternative local economies. There are examples out there of what those are, and there's a need to support communities, First Nations, to develop those economic alternatives to logging. So that is the second area where we've seen progress. And an announcement on conservation funding was supposed to come sometime this year. We're not at the end of the year yet. And so we think an announcement should be imminent, and we're holding our breath to see what it will look like. And I'm excited to celebrate an announcement that fulfills that requirement to be directly tied to providing funding for long-term conservation. And then the third one I'm going to come back to in a moment, because like I said, they're all connected. So for now, can we go to the next slide, please? Oh, we reordered them. That's right, I forgot. So that's perfect, because the third one is biodiversity and ecosystem health legislation. This is one of the 14 recommendations, and it's really important because BC does not have any laws to protect species at risk of extinction. And the federal law does not apply on land under provincial jurisdiction, which is virtually all of BC. So if there is an endangered owl or caribou at a post office, it's definitely protected under the federal law. But if it's out in the forest on what's known as Crown land, then it's not protected under federal law, and there's no BC law to protect it. So this is why you see clear-cut logging in the habitat of the last spotted owl, for example. So the province began by co-developing a framework for biodiversity and ecosystem health protection with Indigenous nations, which is absolutely critical foundation. It's exciting for me because we're all familiar with something like the Endangered Species Act in the US, or SARA for that matter, the Species at Risk Act here in Canada. And that focuses on individual species. But biodiversity is big and comprehensive, and ecosystem health is big and comprehensive. So an act that protects that is advancing. It's beyond, say, a Species at Risk Act or an Endangered Species Act. So the framework is being co-developed right now with First Nations and some environmental NGOs, and we expect to see a draft before the end of the year. And we hope for legislation next year. It's uncertain, but we hope that it will come. And when it does come in draft form, we know that our Move the Dial members, call back to Move the Dial, will be very effective if they choose to put their energy into pushing for a strong biodiversity and ecosystem health law. They're already fluent in talking about this, and they know how to take action at the municipal level. So we're going to push from the bottom up through our grassroots team, and as well at the policy level through our campaigners here at Sierra Club. There's enormous potential here. And if we define ecosystem health well and require true protection, and that's what Sierra Club is committed to. Okay, next slide, please. I'm excited about the biodiversity and ecosystem health law. So tied to this, I'm really excited to talk a little bit about a new project that we started in the last year, or I guess we could say we developed from ongoing and transformative work that we've been doing into a more focused project with the goal of empowering Indigenous decision makers and their colleagues and advisors by providing easy to access and navigate resources for those who are interested in exploring conservation options on their territories. We, of course, are particularly looking around the protection of old growth forests, but it extends beyond that. And also options for economic alternatives to intensive logging or resource extraction. Right now, those options can be difficult to access, and that includes legal and policy pathways toward protected areas, as well as technical resources needed to begin to pursue conservation goals. Our work with the Indigenous Law Research Unit that Hannah mentioned earlier is key to this. It's a basic underpinning because nations can declare a protected area under their own legal orders and may not be recognized and protected under provincial law. So we need to bring those two together. And that's part of this. A key goal also of the work is ultimately healthier ecosystems with an emphasis on old growth forests. For Indigenous communities who want to pursue conservation and economic alternatives to logging, the outcome should be and hopefully will be healthier ecosystems, greater biodiversity, and new economic opportunities connected to that shift. Like I said, there are real world examples of this and learnings to be shared among nations and communities. And this is where our outreach and invitation to partnership showed in the responses from communities and First Nations that Sierra Club has a unique and useful role to play. So we'll be continuing that work through 2024. Thank you. Another way that we're deepening our relationships and commitments to this kind of work is through our new Mother Tree program. The Mother Tree Local Leaders Program was developed with Suzanne Simard. We mentioned her book earlier. And it empowers local leaders to catalyze their own networks. We work with so many amazing people who themselves are networked with many more amazing people. So we want to catalyze those networks to create positive change. And we have worked with faith leaders so far in one cohort and youth climate leaders in a second cohort. And we have more cohorts planned for 2024. There's an Indigenous cohort underway right now in Kwakwaka'wakw territory. We're excited about what we have planned for 2024, and especially about the actions that are coming out of these cohorts. Some folks who have been through the Mother Tree program are planning community-based solutions to climate issues with Sierra Club support, and that ranges from planting pollinator gardens to collaborating with Indigenous nations on watershed protection, for example, to fundraising for Indigenous protected and conserved areas, and much more. So far, about 3,600 people across church organizations and youth climate movements across the Lower Mainland have been reached through this specific program. And that's really important because right now, as you know, everyone is needed in this moment of climate crisis. And this is one of the ways Sierra Club is inviting everyone to deepen their relationships and then move to taking real tangible action. Okay, next slide, please. Related to that is a new program that we have, a new campaign, and it's to protect farmland. We're launching a campaign in 2024 to protect BC's farmland with a focus on small-scale regenerative farmers who are protecting on-farm biodiversity. They're capturing carbon because they're using techniques to promote healthy soil, which captures a lot of carbon, and creating strong communities and resiliency united by local food networks. So we have a staff person participating in the BC committee of the National Farmers Union as they plan their upcoming work. And through that committee, we will support farmers as they lead the way to protect BC's farmland. So look forward to an update on that at next year's AGM as that project gets off the ground. And lastly, with our next slide, I want to share something that fills me with joy as we were honored to participate in ceremony with the Tsleil-Waututh Nation when they welcomed new water protectors from among the youth who had been training for the role. I think it's a 4-year training period. So we joined the Tsleil-Waututh elders and community members in their canoes, pictured here. We paddled across the inlet. I think we had 3 canoes and then other folks in kayaks and other vessels. We paddled across the inlet from the North Shore to the location of the pipeline terminal in the background of that photo. And then community members sang songs honoring the waters and all the beings. And we were invited to join in this ceremony, put our strength into the paddling with the community, and to join in a feast as part of our relationship with the nation in their struggle to prevent the Trans Mountain Pipeline on their territory. Many of you know of that struggle, so I'm not going to go into detail. Sierra Club has been a partner with the Tsleil-Waututh Nation in that struggle. And we can now learn more about it from the perspective of Reuben George, who's the Heritage Director of the Tsleil-Waututh Nation in his new book. I wanted to thank tonight, I just want to take the opportunity to thank the Tsleil-Waututh people for their unending struggle against this pipeline and for inviting us to join them in this good work. And I personally want to thank Sierra Club for committing to this work so deeply and allowing me to be part of it, because it brings a richness to this work that I had not known before, and it's really powerful. So I'm thrilled that that relationship is ongoing and growing with the Tsleil-Waututh Nation right here in the Lower Mainland. I'm going to end there, and I am going to pass the mic or the floor or the virtual mic to Haya Aldouri, our education lead. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Haya, and just as Shelley mentioned, I'm the education program lead at Sierra Club BC. To tell you a little bit about the education team, our role is to feed into the organization's mission by providing rich, hands-on experiential learning opportunities across the province to learners of all ages, but primarily to children and youth. We use a place-based approach that invites learners outside and into a relationship with all beings that are living in their home communities. Using a place-based approach for us also means that we are working with Indigenous collaborators to respectfully weave in local cultural knowledges into all of the work that we do and offer. The biggest area of our work is the in-person environmental education workshops that are available to school classes, homeschool groups, clubs, and other learning communities across BC. For our in-person workshops, our team travels out to the school or learning community in question and runs programs on school grounds or in a nearby park or green space. Just in the last school year, we ran over 300 workshops and reached more than 6,000 learners with our work, which is really amazing. For our workshops, what you see on the screen here is what our current themes are. And so for kindergarten, we have nature and gathering places. For grades 1 and 2, we have life cycles and ecosystems, reciprocal relationships. For grade 3 to 5, we have plants and people making connections. For grades 6 to 8, we have climate and place, community-based thinking. And for high school, we have place-based learning, reimagining our relationships with other beings. Our areas of service in the last school year included the Metro Vancouver area, the mid to northern Vancouver Island areas, and the Capital Regional District. These were all areas where members of our team were physically located in or could easily access. We did also have some occasional travel to other areas of BC, like the Cathet Regional District. For communities that are located in more remote areas of BC, we still continue to have our open access environmental education resources and our education webinars available to folks. Speaking of our webinars, we have our most popular one is still the Learn to Draw series, which is done in collaboration with scientific illustrator Dr. Julius Chutney. These webinars feature drawing lessons and conversations that center around different local beings and ecosystems. So some examples of the ones that we ran in the previous school year were coastal wolves, black bears, and their as well as the forest, and these have all been super well attended, and we had over 3,500 participants. So to keep the learning going beyond just workshop time or webinar time, our education team develops some educational resources to support the learning. So these are made available to everyone on our website and in our education e-newsletter. Our most recent offerings of education resources always include a blending of Western science and local Indigenous connections. Another area of our work is our supports for formal and non-formal educators, and we go about this work in many different ways. One of the ways is by directly connecting them to our education resources, the ones that I was just mentioning. A second way is through our professional development workshops to help teachers strengthen their capacity and build confidence so that they can facilitate environmental education in their respective learning communities. These we offer quite often at education or teacher conferences, as well as on Teacher Pro D days. And a third way that we facilitate this work is to offer support for educators by just modeling behavior during our workshops with the youth and children. For many teachers, watching our team model a program for a class can give them ideas or tools and connections that they can continue to use throughout the school year and in other school years, in the next school years. For the education team, this year has been a really busy year, and there was lots of learning and change and collaboration and lots of new beginnings. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to share a little bit about our work with you this evening. I'll turn things over to Rob for the treasurer's report.
Hey, thanks so much, Haya. Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Rob Geloso. I'm the treasurer of the Sierra Club of British Columbia, and in my day job, I'm a university professor of economics. I've got two small kids running around behind me, so apologies if they cause havoc. I think they're going to want to visit the meeting. So I'm going to keep my comments brief because it's a long meeting, but the finances are important. So first, I'm going to flag that our audited financial statements for the past fiscal year, so the year ending December 31st, 2022, are being posted in the chat. They're also up on the website. I'd urge you to take a look. They're transparent, easy to read. And in my kind of second point, I'm going to give you the quick update on the fiscal picture of the organization for folks who don't want to take the deep dive themselves. Really, this is a treasurer job, super easy here. I'm happy to say that the Sierra Club of British Columbia remains in a wildly strong financial and fiscal position as a result of our donors, our members, and the hard work of the staff. I would say the 2022 year was challenging for many nonprofits in that it was a period of wind down of many COVID supports. There was a lot of uncertainty. It turned out that the economy remained relatively strong, but you wouldn't have known that going into the year. And inflation decided to stick around, which has lots of implications, both on spending impacts of the organization, but also on the willingness of people and organizations to make donations. And so I think there would have been, lots of ex ante reasons to maybe worry about how the year was going to turn out. we actually had a wildly strong year, and was dramatically improved from 2021. I would say that the big picture in my mind is really that the Sierra Club BC became bigger, meaningfully bigger. And what do I mean by that? Hey, look, you want to say hi to everybody? More milk? Yeah, after this. When I say that it became bigger, our revenues increased by nearly 47% year over year. That is a dramatic impact. And as a result, we saw our surplus grow from roughly $100,000, which I would say is a very reasonable and appropriate size surplus for an organization of our size, up to nearly 400,000, which is a large surplus. Surpluses are good. You also want to be able to spend them as a charitable organization. I would say that last year we had a lot of yeah, you want more chocolate in a sec? In a year of uncertainty, though, right? You want to protect the fiscal well-being of the organization, and that was done. And as a result, right, we're in a wildly strong position going forward. Where did most of that new money come from? It overwhelmingly came through agency agreements. And so as a result, it was tied to actual spending commitments and partnerships. And so it's not that we just got a bunch of new resources and put them in the bank. Our expenses were also up by nearly 40%. Right, so just think about it, like the Sierra Club essentially kind of grew in scale by almost 40% if we look at the finances. That's a big period of change. I think it's very positive. And I can say from the numbers that we're seeing for the current year, I think you've always got to see how things turn out at the end of the year, but I would say that we're seeing a return to norm, right? I expect to run a modest surplus, which is probably more appropriate. And so this is not something that the organization is planning on kind of sitting on over the long run. So that's a great picture that I think the membership should be really happy with. Two, what else should you care about in terms of kind of the short run fiscal sustainability of the organization, current assets and liabilities, cash position of the organization? In both of those cases, we are in fabulous shape. So you should be worried if you're in a world in which your current liabilities exceed your current assets. Our current assets are about 2.5 times our current liabilities, which is lovely. It means that we are in a great position to deal with any of our liabilities. And two, we maintain a cash position of roughly $2 million. It declined about 100,000 from the previous year, but again, is a suitable amount for this type of organization. So what's the big takeaway? We're in a great position, and the staff and the members are going to be able to use these resources to do good things in the years ahead. So with that being said, I would like to move a motion to approve the audited financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2022. So is there a mover? Now look to the chat. Okay, Arya, and we've got Kevin as a seconder. That's lovely. So all members in favor, please respond in the poll. Opposed, abstentions, we'll leave it up for 45 seconds. If you haven't gotten your vote in yet, give it a go. Okay, lovely. The motion is passed. Thank you. So the last thing that we need to do from the financial side is that at the AGM, we typically need to appoint or reappoint an auditor. And so as the treasurer, I'm recommending the reappointment of KPMG as the auditors for the 2023 fiscal year for the Sierra Club of British Columbia Foundation. I would say that this is, the costs are totally in line with all other auditors. Two, they know our books well. There are big benefits to basically finding someone and working with them, and they do the work in a timely manner. So with that, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve KPMG as the Sierra Club of British Columbia Foundation's auditor for the foundation for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2023. So I've got Patty moving in the chat. Do I have a seconder? Okay, that's Camilla. Lovely. So you've got 45 seconds to vote. Okay, excellent. The motion has passed. Thank you everyone for your help. With that, I think we're done the financial section for the evening. So I'm happy to turn the meeting over to James Kakola to take the next section. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate your report. My name is James Kakola, and I am the chair of the nominations committee. I'd like to give a moment of thanks to my two other nominations committee members, Alex and Dakota, who are current board members, who helped in the selection of our nominees for tonight. So the nominations committee has been meeting throughout the year. We look at the skills on the board and seek out what other skills we may be missing. We try to balance for geography, gender, experience, and other skill sets. And we allow an open process for members or for individuals to submit their names. So today we are recommending 6 directors. So I think we go one more slide here. And the 6 directors are on the screen in front of you there. The board is made up of currently 10 people. We are having 3 people step off the board, and that leaves us with up to 6 possible vacancies. The bylaws specify a maximum of 13 people. So we are recommending these 6 individuals, which will bring us up to a total of 13 people. So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve these individuals as directors of the Sierra Club of BC Foundation. See a mover from Kevin, or move from Kevin, and second. Thank you so much. Now we're going to be moving a poll. So you're going to be voting in favor, opposed, or abstain. I'll give you 45 seconds for that. If you haven't had a chance to vote yet, please do so now. I think the poll should be closing. There we go. Excellent. So I want to congratulate and welcome the 6 new directors to the Sierra Club Foundation of BC Board of Directors. I'm sure you're going to have an excellent time. Thank you so much for your willingness to step forward. And now I'm going to pass the meeting over to David Quigg.
Thank you so much. I think I get the fun part of the meeting, so thanks for that as well. I'm very grateful to have the honor of recognizing the good work of some truly wonderful people. First, I'd like to present the Jack Hemphill Exceptional Volunteer Service Award to Laura Briggs, who's here tonight. Laura has volunteered countless hours to educate the public about ecosystems and shine a light on the life of all sizes within them. She started the Field Naturalists of Vancouver Island Facebook group, which some of you might be members of. And she started this as a small project 5 years ago. It now has over 25,000 members. So as you can imagine, this is no easy task. I often see her moderating the group to make sure posts are respecting beings in their habitats. And my newsfeed has certainly come alive thanks to her hard work. So Laura, thank you so much. And she is also an exceptionally talented artist. She volunteered her time to grow our Sierra Club BC Facebook artist group, and she offered an amazing needle felting workshop where we made birds' nests. I still have mine here. So you can give Laura some emoji love as well as all the other award recipients. Thank you so much, Laura. You are a true champion of the web of life. So next we have the Geraldine Irby Award for Leadership, and that goes to volunteer all-star Tracy Scott. So Tracy is that rare kind of volunteer who gets the work done early, and then she reaches out to say, what else you got for me? Just what a gift. It's been such a huge help. She's been such a huge help with our Move the Dial project, never shying away from the grunt work, and also offering her expert skills in facilitation and project management. Thank you so much, Tracy. Also, she's a member of GVAT, and she's a huge bridge builder with GVAT. I know there's some GVAT members here tonight. I so enjoy connecting with her regularly to talk about how our organizations can work together and collaborate on shared goals like the Move the Dial project, which has direct impacts on biodiversity in GVAT areas. So thank you so much, Tracy, and I look forward to continuing our work together. Yagudang means respect for all beings in the Haida language, and this award recognizes people whose work lies at the intersection of climate justice and transformative justice. It is extremely fitting that Carrie Baisley is the recipient of this award. Carrie participated in our inaugural Mother Tree Local Leaders program this spring and was a truly inspiring presence with his grounded insights and deep listening. I just loved meeting you, Carrie. I think you're just a wonderful person to be around. And he's been very active in supporting the creation of an Indigenous protected and conserved area in Kanaka Bar that includes thousands of hectares of unique fire-resistant old-growth forests. His work shows a beautiful synthesis of working towards Indigenous sovereignty and climate action. This is especially relevant as the residential school in Kanaka Bar was run by the Anglican Church, and the continued pressure by Carrie on his church to reconcile with past. And there is an important example for many. While this work is just beginning, we recognize Carrie for his unwavering commitment to creating a more just future. Thank you, Carrie, for all the amazing work you do. And finally, I'd like to present the Rosemary Fox Conservation Achievement Award, which recognizes the work of protecting habitat and life needs of species. And this year, we wish to acknowledge a very, very special group of people. These are the Elders for Ancient Trees, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. They are a hardworking bunch who do it all so that younger generations have a future with more intact ecosystems and all the beauty and benefits they provide. They are Susan Gage, Jackie Larkin, and Bill and Jan Johnston. Bill is here with us tonight. They have spoken to thousands with thoughtful words at rallies and events. They brought together hundreds of organizations to sign the United for Old Growth Declaration, and they flash mob dance like they were in their 20s. And this award is presented in memory of Jan Johnston, Bill's life partner, who we lost very suddenly this summer. We lost a good one. Jan gave her heart and soul to the cause of preserving magnificent ecosystems, and this award honors the memory of a truly, truly beautiful spirit. So thank you so much, Elders for Ancient Trees, for your inspiring leadership. And I personally learned so much from you. And I would now like to welcome Bill to share some words.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Well, I'd just like to say, first of all, on behalf of the elders, this is such an honor because we have been, like David was saying, we have learned so much in the collaborative experience. Putting together the February 25th rally being the largest example of teamwork to pull off, I think, a splendid event, which added more momentum to the movement to save old growth. When Jan and I joined the group, I think there was about 8 of us, and now I think there's almost 1,000. So perhaps not in the same scale as Laura Briggs, but we're working towards that direction. I'm very thrilled to accept this award in the memory of my wife, who, as David said, is and was a fierce activist, tireless in her pursuit of saving old growth, and wore so many hats over all of the 18 months of the most activity. So this really means a lot to me personally. I will cherish this, and I'm sure Jan's looking down and is thrilled as well. In fact, I brought her picture here just so you could see her in action. And this is from up at Eden Grove. And we carried it in the last rally on the 28th of September so that Jan would be there. It's interesting. I mean, maybe 3 decades ago, she used as her signature block the quote from Margaret Mead, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." And so this was the motto she lived by, and I can see from the report tonight, which I have to say I found fascinating and so impressive, what your various team leads are achieving. And so I'm very pleased to be part of the movement, and I hope to stay engaged and work not only with my own convictions, but carrying those of Jan. So thank you once again for this great honor, and thank you on behalf of the Elders for Ancient Trees.
Thank you so much, Bill, and thank you for sharing those beautiful words in memory of Jan. We all miss her very much. And thank you to all our local leader award recipients. A card and gift will be coming your way as a token of our appreciation. So from all of us, thank you. And now back to Jordan.
Oh, look at that. Thank you so much, everybody. And congratulations to the recipients of the awards tonight, to our new board members. In closing, I want to draw your attention to our annual report, which highlights some really key facts and figures. It's going to be posted on our website following tonight's meeting, but we're also going to drop it in the chat for you as well. Thanks once again to all of our staff and our amazing volunteers and champions. You really make it all work, and we couldn't do it without you. Thanks again to all of our outgoing board members, James, Darius, and Susan. I look forward to working with you in the future, and thank you so much for everything that you've given to Sierra Club. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Thank you, Aria. And thank you, James. Okay. All those in favor? Thank you so much to everybody for giving your time tonight to attend the general meeting. It's such a pleasure to be able to spend this time with you to recognize the work we've done as an organization. And I look forward to everything that we're going to achieve together in the year to come.